Welcome to the first episode of Big Mouth Willie Bass Podcast. I'm your host, Ryan Willis.
And I'm Matt Willis.
And we're brothers. How about that? So, yeah, we're very excited about our new show here. You know, with the coronavirus in full swing across the nation right now, we're going to be spending an awful lot of time indoors. So I figured, hey, why not start up a podcast? This will actually be my second podcast that I will be doing personally. Matt, this will be your first, is that right?
First time.
All right, so fun stuff. So just a little bit about us, other than the fact that we're brothers. We're huge sports fans, so we would like to talk about sports, but unfortunately, with pretty much everything being canceled right now, there's not a whole lot to talk about. Now, this first episode, we're going to be diving into NFL free agency. Thank you, NFL, for providing some entertainment for us. But other than that, we're also going to be talking about just life stuff, entertainment, random crap, just pretty much whatever we feel like talking about.
Oh, yes, it's going to be very entertaining, and we're going to have a good time.
A smashing good time. So, to start us off right, and we're actually recording this also on YouTube. So, if you're listening on Podbean, I'm sorry you're not going to be able to see this firsthand, but we are actually going to take a shot. A Jim Beam whiskey to get us off on the right foot.
Yes, always get off on the right foot.
The commemorative first episode. So here's mine.
Oh, thanks, buddy.
There's yours. You hear that pouring, folks? Good stuff, good stuff. All right.
Cheers. Yeah.
To many more episodes, I hope.
That's good
stuff. I spilled some of it on my beard here. My goodness. So, yeah. Anyway, like we mentioned, we're going to be talking NFL free agency to start us off today. And is it still recording? I think it is. What's your passcode?
Oh, don't worry. I got you, buddy.
Just want to make sure your phone and shut up. Okay,
yeah,
we're still
recording.
Okay, false alarm. So, yes, we will be discussing NFL free agency tonight. And we are on day 2. Well, technically, free agency hasn't started officially. It's supposed to start tomorrow.
It's supposed to be tomorrow.
But we've already had like 100 different moves come down. So let's just go ahead and dive into the stuff that's already been coming out. So first order of business, let's just get it out of the way. I don't want to spend too much time on it because obviously ESPN, NFL Network, everybody and their mothers is talking about it.
We're doing our due diligence.
Yeah, it's like he's the only person that's playing in the NFL these days. But Tom Brady has officially parted ways with the New England Patriots after 20 seasons. It is over for Brady and Belichick. That marriage is kaput. Brady is now a free agent. And all the reports seem to be showing that he will be signing with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. The Yuccaneers, folks. 2 years, $60 million. Obviously, the official details on the contract have not come out yet. We'll probably have to wait for tomorrow. But, yeah, so, Matt, first thoughts, Brady to the Buccaneers.
There's a lot of layers about it. If you're the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, though, that's definitely a victory for you.
Like, oh, yeah.
Like, from Jameis Winston, turnover bakery.
30 interceptions.
To Tom Brady, maybe undeniably the best player ever, so, you know.
Yeah, we hate to give him credit, but, I mean, he is definitely a top 3 quarterback of all time. I don't think there's anybody that's going to dispute that. I mean, personally, I guess I'm a little surprised that he's going to a team like the Bucs. You know, it's not a high-profile team. It's not a team that's, you know, got a lot of pizzazz, you know, a sexy team. But I can understand it from this standpoint. I mean, Bruce Arians is their head coach. He's a well-known, respected head coach in the National Football League. He's worked with Peyton Manning. He's worked with Ben Roethlisberger. He worked with Carson Palmer in Arizona. Yeah. So he's worked with those veteran quarterbacks. So he's got that familiarity there. And then on top of that, you got Mike Evans and Chris Godwin, maybe the best wide receiver tandem in the NFL, if not the best, one of the best. So he's got weapons at his disposal, which he didn't really have his last couple of years in New England. And O.J. Howard is a heck of a tight end. I mean, he just hasn't really been showcased properly since he's been drafted there. But I think that's definitely going to change now because Brady, as you know, loves his tight ends.
Yeah. Well, even from Brady's perspective, like, he may view him joining the Buccaneers as, you know, putting the franchise on the map kind of thing. They got a big name head coach. They got big name receivers like you mentioned, Mike Evans, Goodwin, O.J. Howard. Really just need to get more pieces around there, like specifically defense.
Yeah. And honestly, the second half of last year, that defense started to come together. They were definitely
It took a
playing
while.
better. Yeah. I mean, last season was an up and down year all together for Tampa Bay. Easily could have been a playoff team, honestly, if it wasn't for Jameis turning the ball over 4 times a game on average. So, yeah, obviously huge move. I mean, the NFC South, in my opinion, is fairly wide open. I mean, I know the Saints have been kind of running the show there the last couple of years, but the Saints have also shown us in the playoffs that they can be had.
Yeah.
So I don't look at the Saints as an unbeatable team by any stretch. Carolina's going through a rebuild right now. Atlanta, I don't know what the hell they're doing. So it's a fairly easy division. If you get through New Orleans, it's their division, essentially.
I would say, though, that all 4 quarterbacks, there's also a move that we'll get to in a little bit, but with Carolina. But I do think that all 4 quarterbacks are they're up there. Obviously, we all know about Drew Brees. Matt Ryan's also very good as well. Tom Brady. It's a very good division all around. So I think it could be anyone up for grabs.
But we have to talk about Brady's age. I mean, we definitely saw last year signs of decline.
Yes.
The arm strength is not there. And what I've been reading on Twitter today, and what I've also been thinking about personally, says he doesn't have the arm strength, and Bruce Arians loves to just gun it down the field every play, it seems like, which is what got Jameis into so much trouble last season, let's be honest. Is this going to really work?
Yeah.
Is Arians going to be willing to just completely change his offense up for Brady? I mean, he's going to have to, obviously, to make it work, but I'm just questioning how effective it's going to be.
Well, I mean, there's always going to be question marks, and there's always going to be an adjustment period for any team. That's just football in general, sports in general, really. But Bruce Arians is a very good coach. He's probably easily top 5, top 10 at the very minimum coaches in the NFL. So I think they could adapt. I think if the Buccaneers could also maybe bring in another running back, because I do think that, obviously, what you said, Brady doesn't have the arm strength that he used to have. So if they can get a power running game going, I would compare it kind of to what Peyton Manning when he went to the Broncos in his later years. Just get a good all-around team, draft well, and sign free agents. They already got pieces in place. They got good coaching.
The nucleus is definitely there.
Yeah.
I'm not a huge fan of their running backs. I know Ronald Jones kind of came on a little bit last year in his second year out of USC.
Yeah.
I know he had over 1,000 yards of total scrimmage yardage, so he definitely showed some splashes. I don't know if he's ever going to be really a full-time back. And then their other running back, I believe, is Peyton Barber. Is that his name? Yeah. He's just kind of, he's a decent back, but he's not somebody that's going to be catching a lot of passes out of the backfield. So if they could get James White, for example, his old buddy from New England, that would be perfect. But yeah, just get a receiving running back of some kind.
They could, hypothetically, of course, they could sign Melvin Gordon.
Yeah.
I mean,
he's a free agent, as far as we know. Still available.
I mean, I just think that because of the fact they have Brady now, they have to put all the chips on the table now. They got to win now.
And I think, obviously, other free agents that are still out there are going to be attracted to Tampa.
Oh, they have to be.
Yeah, especially if you're on the offensive side of the ball. I mean, this is your one and last chance to play with Tom Brady. So
exactly.
I definitely expect them to make at least a couple more moves. And then, like you also mentioned earlier, the defense, if they could add a couple more pieces on that side of the ball, strengthen that unit up. I think you're looking at a team that could easily win 10, 11, maybe even 12 games next season.
They could bring in a guy like Chris Harris on the outside. There's just plenty of names they can look at.
They're getting gobbled up fast, though. Like I mentioned earlier, it's been like 100 moves already. We're barely 48 hours in.
Illegal tampering.
Yeah, right.
But yeah, that's definitely going to be one of the biggest storylines next year, without question. And they play a lot of good opponents next year because obviously they got Tom Brady to play Drew Brees twice.
Yep.
I also saw that they'll be playing Kansas City.
Oh, yeah.
So that matchup again, Brady versus Mahomes.
That's always a fun one.
So it's going to
We don't get the Brady versus New England one, but I did see that they would be playing in New England in 2021 as long as Brady does actually play out these 2 years.
I'm sure he'll be playing.
Can't wait for 2 years from now when that matchup goes down. Oh, go ahead.
What do you think about New England? Just like about their situation.
Yeah, well, we were talking about this earlier, but, Belichick usually is always prepared for everything.
Yeah.
He's always playing chess while everyone else is playing checkers. And, I mentioned how he's always kind of had a quarterback in waiting way before Brady's time was even coming up. He had Garoppolo for a few years. He had Brissett at one point, who's now, of course, with the Colts. And then way back when he had Ryan Mallett, who I think was a third-round pick or somewhere around
even
there.
Further back, Matt Castle.
Matt Castle, who won 11 games for them back in, 2007, I believe?
Yeah, 2008 maybe, yeah.
2008, yeah. So Belichick's always kind of had a quarterback in waiting. He doesn't really have that right now. Their guy they have right now on the depth chart is what? Jared Stidham?
Yeah, Stidham.
From Auburn.
We apologize if we got that wrong, but
I'm sure we did. I mess up names routinely, so get used to it. But yeah, I mean, that's their, I think, number one quarterback on the depth chart right now. I seriously doubt that's the guy that Belichick's going to be rolling out with on week one.
I will say this, full disclosure, they did say the same thing about Tom Brady. Like, him being unknown.
Well, yeah,
but yeah.
Is there going to be another Tom Brady? I mean, come on.
You can't be another Tom Brady, but, they have a good system.
I will say that if there's any coach that could win with a no-name quarterback, it is Belichick. Because, I mean, we saw what Matt Castle did after he left the Patriots. He went on to sign with the Kansas City Chiefs.
The Chefs.
Yeah, the Chefs, and did absolutely nothing. And that was just a complete...
We had one
blow up with the Chiefs. One good year.
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah, so, it's interesting. So I'm really intrigued to see what Belichick's going to do. I mean, obviously, I'd have to think they're going to be looking for a quarterback in the draft. Are they going to try to trade up this year to maybe grab a Tua?
I think even if they do sign or even trade for someone, they probably should draft another quarterback regardless.
Oh, yeah. And Belichick's usually pretty good about finding a diamond in the rough, kind of like middle to late round.
Yeah.
So
because I've been hearing, some people are saying maybe Andy Dalton can go to New England. But
that would be hilarious.
I mean, I don't think that would be as bad as you think, though. Just because, in Cincinnati, he never really had the best of coaching.
I think
Belichick... a lot of moving parts. I mean, obviously, he won't be replacing Brady, but, I mean... He could be a stopgap quarterback per se, for a couple of years.
If there's anybody that can elevate a mediocre quarterback's play, it's Belichick. So I could see that. I mean, again, I don't think Dalton would be the answer long term, but for a stopgap solution, yeah, I could see that working out for him. I mean, I was thinking that maybe Phillip Rivers could be a possibility, but he's no longer available, which we're going to get to next. But yeah, I mean, what other quarterbacks are really out there? I mean, Cam Newton, I guess, apparently he didn't. I don't know which, requested a trade. He's denying it, but clearly the Panthers want to get rid of him, so maybe Belichick would look in that direction. Is Fitzmagic available? Maybe they bring him in for a year. I don't know, but it's going to be really very interesting to see what the Patriots do, in fact, do, because it's been Brady for 20 years. You haven't had to worry about the position for 20 years, 2 decades. I mean, this is going to be a whole new brand of Patriots football coming.
Yeah, that's true. I would say this, though. I know, obviously, Buffalo had a very good year last year, but New England still did win 12 games last year. I know everyone in the media is, torching Tom Brady. Oh, he's finished. He's not the same as he used to. They still won 12 games. They had the number one defense. So, I mean... I don't think they have to have superior quarterback play just to get back to the playoffs. Really.
Well, now we're gonna find out for sure.
Yeah.
Whether both Belichick and Brady need each other, or if Belichick doesn't need Brady, Brady doesn't need Belichick. We're gonna find out in the next year and next 2 years, really.
That's gonna be the storyline going forward for sure. That's what the media and everyone. It's going to be the storyline, probably, if not for the league.
Because how many years have we been hearing people say, well, Brady's a system quarterback? Or the other side of the argument, oh, well, where would Belichick be without Brady? He would have gotten fired, 17 years ago. So I think we're going to start finding a lot more answers in the next couple of years. But at the same time, it kind of sucks that we're going to see Brady play for another team at such an old age. At the very end of his career, where clearly he's just not the same guy anymore. But he's still Tom Brady, so it'll be interesting either way.
Absolutely.
All right, let's move on to our next topic. Phillip Rivers, our guy, our man.
San Diego,
that's our quarterback. He finally leaves the dumpster fire in the LA Spanos' Chargers.
Yep.
And he signed today with the Indianapolis Colts, a 1-year, $25 million contract. Your initial reaction?
I would drink to that.
Cheers! Let's get some more Jim Beam out here.
No, I love it for Phillip Rivers and the Colts. I think that's a perfect match, just all around.
Frank Reich.
Yeah, familiar coaches. Obviously, Phillip Rivers. Well, I don't know if Indiana is necessarily part of the South, but it's kind of
Southern Division.
It's Southern Division.
AFC South.
It's kind of like his backyard in a way. But no, I think all around, like, Phillip Rivers is an upgrade over Jacoby Brissett.
Oh yeah.
And I think that they should see immediate results, really.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, the Colts already have an outstanding offensive line, so that's something that really Rivers has not had in several years. I mean, Tom Telesco for the Chargers just
probably 10 years.
always did an awful job of getting him, offensive linemen that could actually protect him. Yeah. So he's going to have a good offensive line in Indy. He's got T.Y. Hilton, who's a top 10 receiver, top 15 at the minimum. Mm-hmm. Jack Doyle's a solid tight end. They've got a good group of running backs, Marlon Mack. So I think it's a good fit. I agree. Frank Reich, they had a relationship when they were with the Chargers. Reich was the quarterback's coach for a couple years and the offensive coordinator before he got ousted. And then he went on to Philadelphia and won the Super Bowl over there. Yeah. So, yeah, I agree. The familiarity is going to be there. The playbook's not going to be very difficult for Rivers. He's going to be able to walk in day one. He's going to understand the verbiage already. So, I think it's a perfect fit, honestly. I don't know if it would have made sense for him to go anywhere else. Yeah. I did think originally that maybe he was going to go to a Florida team, whether it was Jacksonville, Miami, or Tampa, because he did just move his millions of kids and his wife to Florida. Yeah. So I thought that for sure he was going to end up signing with the Florida team, but I think it just made too much sense for him and both sides, really, for this deal to come together.
Well, first off, apparently he's moving all his kids to Indianapolis now. So
yes, I was shocked. I really thought that he was just going to kind of just fly back and forth through the year and the kids would just stay in Florida. But no, the whole tribe.
He wants to make it his new home.
They're all going to Indianapolis. That's hard to believe, but I mean
you got to think from like Phillip Rivers' perspective, though. If we're just talking like from the football side, this is going to be the first time in 4 years that he's going to be playing in front of an actual fan base.
Yeah.
Obviously, since we're from Southern California, we understand what's happened with the Chargers and how fractured the fan base is now and all that. But
yeah,
I feel like this is going to rejuvenate him. Because I know he never really, Phillip never really said per se, the crowd makes too much of a difference. It's on us. But
yeah, you
can just tell with his body language, and he never felt happy in LA.
No,
he's going to go to Indianapolis and be rejuvenated, I believe.
He was not on board with that move from day one. But Rivers, he's a down to earth country boy. He's not. The last thing he wants to do is become a distraction and start banging on his chest and saying, "Get me out of here! I demand a trade." That's just not his style. But obviously, once his contract finally expired after this past season, he didn't waste any time.
Yeah.
He moved out of San Diego.
He was gone.
I am done with this organization. Get me the hell out of here. And that's exactly what he did. And yeah, I'm very happy for him. I really hope this works out. I have a good feeling about it. I really think this is going to be the perfect situation for him. I could easily see them win that division next year.
Yes.
So, Colts fans, be happy. I've been reading a lot of your comments on Twitter tonight. A lot of you seem to be pretty mixed about it. Be happy, all right? Yeah. Brissett's not a great quarterback. He's a solid quarterback. He's a great backup quarterback.
Yeah.
If you only need Brissett to start a handful of games, he's perfect.
That's true.
He'll get the job done. He can win you some games, but he's not a franchise quarterback. He's not somebody who's going to carry a team on his back for an entire season. I believe Phillip Rivers can still do it. I know he didn't have a great year statistically last year, and arm strength definitely is in decline, but I think he's got at least one more good run in him.
Yeah, just like what I was just talking about with Tom Brady in Tampa Bay. Just get pieces around him. He's a pocket passer. He already has a good offensive line, so that's a good start already. Yeah. Running game, they got Marlon Mack. They got T.Y. Hilton. They got Doyle.
Jack Doyle.
So, they just need to be patient with it. Well, obviously, it's only a 1-year contract, not much patience, but you should know what to expect from Phillip Rivers. So
and defensively, the Colts should be in pretty good shape because they just traded for DeForest Buckner from the 49ers, who a key piece, valuable piece to that Niners defense last year in their Super Bowl run. I still can't believe the Niners traded him. That didn't really make sense to me. But they got a guy like that to add to the defense. I mean, they're heading in the right direction.
They already got Darius Leonard.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. They've got the pieces there. So, obviously, they'll probably still draft a quarterback in the draft this year because Rivers did only sign a one-year deal. So, it could be a one-and-done situation. So, they're definitely going to want to draft a quarterback. But what a perfect situation for that young guy, whoever it's going to be, to learn behind a veteran like Rivers.
Exactly.
A win-win situation all around for the Colts.
Absolutely.
Time to order our Rivers jersey. Colts, baby. Our new team. All right. Next topic. I've been looking forward to this one. What was Bill O'Brien thinking? The Houston Texans trade DeAndre Hopkins, arguably the best receiver in football, to the Arizona Cardinals for David Johnson. Now, maybe if they did this trade last year, I still would say it's a bad trade for the Texans, but I probably would have been a little bit more on board because David Johnson, we were still viewing him as a top 3 running back in the National Football League. But after what we just witnessed this past season, David Johnson does not care anymore. I mean, there's so many videos all over Twitter of him. They call it eco-friendly mode, where he's just seems like he's running in place. He doesn't give a crap. He's basically jogging in place, not giving any sort of effort. He's got that huge contract, so what does he care? That's who the Texans get for arguably the best receiver in the game. And on top of that, the Texans didn't even get a first-round pick. They got a second-round pick this year, and then they get a fourth-rounder in next year's draft. And the Cardinals end up getting a fourth-round pick in this year's draft. So the Cardinals clearly, Matt, won this trade, right? Or is there something I'm missing here?
Oh, man. Yeah, I hate to jump on the wagon, same as everyone else, but yeah, this trade doesn't really make much sense from the Houston Texans' perspective. I mean, I know David Johnson is a professional football player. He earned his money.
He won't be for much longer.
He had a couple good years in Arizona. Let's not forget.
Oh, he had a couple great years, and he deserved that contract. But
I don't want to throw a shade at David Johnson per se. I want to throw a shade at Bill O'Brien for making this trade. That's
absolutely. Bill O'Brien is absolutely clueless. I mean, I have not been a fan of this guy since the get-go, but he's been in a terrible division there in the AFC South for so many years. He's kind of gotten away with poor decisions on and off the field. Now he's a GM.
I would even say, just based off last year, them blowing a 24-0 lead in the first half, not just for the game, in all one quarter.
Yeah.
I would have fired him.
I would have fired him after that Kansas City game. I'm sorry. That just cannot happen. I know it's the Chiefs, and the Chiefs ended up winning the Super Bowl, so maybe that makes it a little easier to take, but you can't blow a 24-point lead in the divisional round of the playoffs. Give me a break, especially with O'Brien's track record as is. I mean, he doesn't have any success in the playoffs for the most part. I think he's only got 1 or 2 wins, so... Look, this is an awful trade. I don't care if David Johnson decides to turn it on this year and becomes a David Johnson from a couple of years ago. You just don't trade a guy like DeAndre Hopkins. And if you at least get a first, maybe even 2 first-round picks back for him.
Not under these circumstances, as of the present day. No, it doesn't. Honestly, I think that is Bob McNair the Texas owner, right?
Yes.
Yes.
He may have passed away.
Okay, but it's still the McNair family.
Yeah. I'll check that.
Yeah. They don't know what they're doing. I was like, they're at the same level as Spanos. They just.
Yeah, I mean, it's sad because they have a good nucleus. They got Deshaun Watson, who I love. He's one of my favorite players in the NFL. But they haven't given him an offensive line to speak of. I mean, I know they traded for Laramie Tunsil last year, so that helped, but for the most part, I mean, their offensive line has just been absolute dog crap. And now you take away his best weapon. Now, their number 1 receiver is Will Fuller. Will hamstrings Fuller.
Never stays healthy.
Every year, he pulls a ham and he's out for a couple months. The guy can't play a 16-game schedule. So, I don't... Oh, and then they go out and sign Randall Cobb today.
Yeah, they also have Kenny Stills, too. They all have nothing but just
Kenny Stills
small receivers
is nothing better than a slot receiver, and he'll have his moments, but he's getting up there in age.
Yeah, it's true.
I mean, it's an absolute joke. Randall Cobb? Really? That's who you're going to replace Hopkins with? Even if you did that 5 years ago when Cobb was in his prime, that still wouldn't make much sense.
Yeah. Well, I heard, like, people from a certain network, they were talking...
Four-letter network?
they were talking about the trade. Like, one of the guys on there was just saying, oh, they can draft a receiver in the first or second round, but it's just like, you can't replace Hopkins.
Oh, I think that was Dan Orlovsky that said that.
Or it may have been Tannenbaum.
Yeah. Well, Orlovsky said pretty much the same thing.
But
you don't make a trade like this.
It's kind of similar to what the Raiders did with Khalil Mack a couple years ago. Although at least the Raiders got a lot of draft picks back.
Oh, they got a boatload of picks.
Like, at least they got that. Gruden got that right. The Texans, I think,
they totally dropped the ball. But for the Cardinals, though, an absolute steal.
Yes.
I mean, Kyler Murray, I thought, all things considered, he outperformed expectations as a rookie first overall pick. He definitely hit kind of a rookie wall the last few weeks of the year. I know that because he was on my fantasy team. But for the most part, I thought he had a very impressive rookie year. Yeah. I think this is a huge deal. I mean, this is going to obviously elevate his game. And the Cardinals, I really like what they're doing. I really think they're on the up and up. And, I mean, you get a guy like Hopkins, who I believe still has 3 years left on his contract. He's still in the prime of his career. Mm-hmm. I mean, absolute steal.
Well, just think about this, too. Hopkins can, pretty much take the torch from Larry Fitzgerald now.
Yeah.
Because if there is anyone in the NFL who could take that torch from Larry Fitzgerald, one of the greatest receivers ever, it's Hopkins.
And I'm pretty sure Fitz is coming back for another year.
Yeah, he signed a 1-year deal.
So, I mean, it takes a little bit of pressure off of him. He won't have to play nearly as much as he had to last year.
They also still have Christian Kirk, too.
Yeah, and Christian Kirk, I mean, he's a big play waiting to happen on any given play. Mm-hmm. So I really like Christian Kirk. So, yeah, I mean, great trade for the Cardinals. And as far as the Texans go, like... I don't understand it.
It makes no sense.
I really think this will be Bill O'Brien's death sentence. I think if the Texans fall off this year, which they probably will now, he's got to go. I mean, this is inexcusable. You can't make a trade like this.
Should let him go right now. Honestly,
I would.
Before he makes any other, poor decision. He's probably going to.
Moron. All right, next order of business. Teddy Bridgewater.
Teddy.
So he started, I believe, 5 games for the Saints last year.
Yeah, 5 or 6.
5 or 6, I forget the exact number. And he won all of them when Drew Brees was out with his injury. And, he looked good. I'll give him that. But he becomes a free agent, and he signs a 3-year, $60 million contract with the Carolina Panthers. Mind you, Cam Newton is still on the roster. Like, they still haven't figured out what they're going to do with Cam, but yet they just throw $60 million towards Teddy Bridgewater. Look, I like Teddy Bridgewater. He's a great story. Gosh, we thought he was going to lose his leg a few years ago when he was with the Vikings, that gruesome leg injury he suffered in training camp. He's bounced around since then. He signed with the Jets for 1 year, then he's with the Saints, and then last year he finally got an opportunity to play. To me, Teddy Bridgewater is a system quarterback. Sean Payton and his offense made him look a lot better than what he really is. I think he's a solid backup quarterback. I think he's kind of similar to Jacoby Brissett, where if you need him to start a few games, yes, he can deliver for you. But for a 16-game season and just beyond a franchise quarterback, I don't see him as a franchise quarterback.
Yeah.
What are your thoughts?
I mean, it's honestly kind of hard to say. Because just from the sample size, he has won a good amount of games. But with that said, it's kind of a small sample size. So it's kind of hard to say if he's a franchise quarterback or not. So that's why, at least, I do agree with only giving him a 3-year deal rather than like a 5 or 6 year deal.
That was smart on the Panthers' part. I mean, I'll give them credit for that. They only gave him a 3-year deal, so it definitely gives them a lot of protection there. But what about Cam Newton now? So the report is that the Panthers came out and said, we're granting him permission that he asked for him to seek a trade. And then Newton immediately responds back and says, hey, I never requested a trade. I love the Panthers. Like, what are you guys talking about?
Yeah.
What do you make of that mess?
It's a mess. I don't think they for sure probably could have handled it better. I feel like they probably should have had this discussion beforehand rather than like right at the start of free agency. Because Cam Newton has been their guy essentially for the past decade.
Mm-hmm.
And, you can say whatever you want about him and the way he is, but at the end of the day, he was the man. And I feel like that he should deserve a little bit more, clarity on the situation.
Yeah.
I feel like Carolina just has to trade him at this point. Well, of course they should. They got Bridgewater now. They're paying.
Yeah, you're not going to pay Bridgewater $20 million a year to sit on the pine. I mean, that's just not going to happen. But yeah, just very strange. And they got their new head coach Matt Rule from Baylor, college guy. So he's trying to implement his own system there. I mean, I don't believe that he's going to, end up doing anything there. But we'll see. But, yeah, it's just very strange how the Panthers have handled it. And really going back to last year, because remember he played the first few weeks and then the reports started coming out that he was injured. Mm-hmm. And then they ended up sitting him down for a couple weeks. And then Ron Rivera kept saying, oh, yeah, we'll just kind of take our time and make sure Cam's 100%. It was his foot, right, that was bothering him last year? Was it?
I think it foot, shoulder, it's a lot.
He's had a lot of
injuries.
He's had a lot. He's been
all them hits.
Yeah, he's taken some big-time hits over the years. But, yeah, I believe it was his foot, though, that was the biggest issue. And they kept saying, like, oh, yeah, give him a couple weeks. And then all of a sudden the season's over. And it's like, yeah, like he never came back. It was almost like the Panthers were just kind of like, yeah, we don't really want him anymore. Like, let's give Kyle Allen some reps, see if we got anything in him. And Kyle Allen, he had a few good games last year.
He started off hot, but, he fell off the wagon.
Once defensive coordinators got some film on him, they pretty much knew how to pick him apart. But yeah, so the Panthers have really been awkward about this whole thing dating back to last year. So I'm really intrigued to see where he's going to end up. I mean, there's definitely, I think, a couple teams out there that would make sense. I was telling you earlier that maybe the Dolphins, if they wanted to explore that. I mean, I know the Dolphins probably are going to try to get Tua in the draft, but even still, you could probably still get Newton out there for a couple seasons.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of teams that need a quarterback this particular offseason. So, Carolina at the end of the day has to get rid of him somehow and get some compensation. Although, we were also talking about this earlier as well, but Carolina may overplayed their hand now because now they probably won't get as good a return now that they had their quarterback.
Yeah, it's going to be really difficult for them to get more than like maybe a third or a fourth round pick for him, I feel. Because teams are going to say, well, what? Like, you guys have no leverage. We don't have to agree to anything. Nobody else has to agree to trade for him. And then you guys are going to be stuck with him. You're going to probably just have to release him and eat that cat number.
You owe that money.
Yeah, so the Panthers really did overplay themselves here, and I just don't understand it. Just really bad management all the way around.
I mean, I think it's safe to say that Tampa Bay for sure is ahead of Carolina.
Oh, yeah. I think maybe even the Falcons, honestly, at this point. I'm not very high on their team either. All right, let's go ahead and wrap things up, Matt, with the Cleveland Brownies. They're making moves. I think the Browns had the most cap space, or they were like one of the top three teams
they were
as
up
far
there.
as, yeah, they had a lot of money to spend. So the first move they made, this was one of the first big moves, in quotations, that happened on Monday, but Austin Hooper, the former Atlanta Falcon tight end, goes there for a 4-year, $44 million contract. That kind of made me scratch my head a little bit because they already have David Njoku, who I know hasn't been able to stay healthy for the most part since he was drafted a couple years ago. But when he's been out there, he's shown a lot of promise. He's a talented kid. But on top of that, I mean, the Browns just had a dismal season, and they have a lot of holes on that roster. Tight end is not really on the list of things they really need. I like Austin Hooper, fine player, but he's not a difference maker. He's not someone that's going to elevate the Browns from how many wins they had last year? 6, 7?
Yeah, 7.
Yeah, he's not a guy that's going to elevate them from 7 to 9 or 10 wins. I mean, he's just not that type of player. So I didn't really necessarily understand that one. But then they signed Jack Conklin, the former offensive tackle from the Titans, to a 3-year, $42 million contract. Now, that's a deal I can get behind because the Browns' offensive line was horrendous last year. And Conklin is one of the best tackles in the game. So I like that move a lot. So what are your thoughts on those two moves?
Oh, start with Hooper. Yeah, it's a bit questionable just because of how much they're paying him. Like, if they got him on a cheaper deal.
I believe he's now the highest paid tight end in the NFL.
See, that doesn't really make much sense to me. I assume what Cleveland's trying to do is they're trying to do like what New England did when they had Rob Gronkowski and Aaron Hernandez, play 2 tight ends. But I don't know. It's just kind of questionable. Austin Hooper's a good football player. Don't get me wrong, but highest paid tight end in the NFL. That's a big time reach.
I almost feel like they're just overpaying him because. We know that the tight end position is almost dead in the NFL. There's 5 or 6 guys that you can name off the top of your head that are the guys that you'd pick in fantasy, for example.
Right.
And after that, it's just a bunch of mediocre guys that every once in a while will splash and do something. But yeah, tight end, the position is very weak overall in the NFL. So I guess you kind of have to overpay. But again, that wasn't really a position of need for the Cleveland Browns, in my opinion.
Yeah, they could always draft someone too.
Yeah.
It's going to be interesting to see how that plays out. I feel like I don't think he's ever going to make a Pro Bowl with the Browns, but I guess he could be a solid tight end, maybe top 10 or 15 if they're lucky. But
that's what he is, and he's a dangerous red zone threat. It seemed like every week he was catching touchdowns for Matt Ryan when they were, inside the 20-yard line.
Yeah.
So he's definitely a red zone threat. And, Baker Mayfield obviously needs all the help he can get. He had a pretty bad season, and I know a lot of people chalk that up to just Freddie Kitchens being an awful coach, and I'm not going to disagree with that either. But Baker clearly has a lot to work on still.
Yeah.
But when you have Odell Beckham and Jarvis Landry on top of Nick Chubb and Kareem Hunt at running back, you still can't figure it out. Is Austin Hooper going to be that missing piece to where he is going to figure it out? I don't know about that.
Yeah.
But Conklin, that's a move that's going to help Baker Mayfield.
Yeah, for sure.
That's the move I can get behind.
Yeah, obviously they lost Joe Thomas last offseason, I believe.
Last offseason or 2 offseasons ago, I can't remember.
Yeah, so, they have a big hole there, and Conklin won't necessarily replace Joe Thomas. However, that's pretty close. So he's definitely probably top 5 best offensive linemen in football.
Oh, yeah. He just had a great season with the Titans last year.
A couple of time All-Pro.
I don't know if the Titans make it all the way to the AFC Championship game without him.
That's going to make their the Browns running game very, very good. They already got is Kareem Hunt coming back?
Yeah, I believe so.
Yeah, and they also got
Nick Chubb.
Yeah.
Who was not used properly at all last year, let's be honest. It seemed like every time the Browns would get inside the 5-yard line, what would Freddie Kitchens do? Oh, let's do a quarterback draw. Let's do a naked bootleg. It's like, no.
No.
You have a top 10 running back and Nick Chubb, give him the damn ball.
Exactly.
I'm so glad I didn't have him on my fantasy team last year.
He did have a lot of yards, though, but not touchdowns.
Yeah, the touchdowns weren't there, so they got to change that in Cleveland.
So, I'll be curious to see. A lot of it, I think, depends on the growth and maturity of Baker Mayfield.
He's got a lot of growing up to do.
I've heard he said a lot of the right things, since the season has ended, but obviously it's only been a couple months now, so it's not really... It's a small sample size, but...
Talk is cheap, man.
Yeah.
Talk is cheap. It's time to see results from that guy.
I do think that Mayfield is the type of guy who can... lead the charge and try to get the Browns back together. I think he's the right guy there, but I just think that he's got to be stopped. He's got to stop being so cocky and so full of himself. Really,
I was always a big fan of Baker. Dating back to his Oklahoma days, but this past season, man, he just didn't seem to handle that whole mess very well. And I know it was a very difficult situation. He's still a young kid, so give him a slight pass for that. But I don't know, man. After last season, I have a lot of question marks about Baker that I didn't think I had going back to his rookie season.
He definitely let the media get the best of him.
He did, and you can't do that, especially when you're the quarterback. That's just part of the job. You got to be able to stand there and just take the blame. Yeah, that's just part of the territory.
But I do think, though, that if he matures up and obviously if his quarterback play, continues to progress and to get the right coaches. That's something that Cleveland has never had since they came back.
Yeah, they're firing coaches every other season. So
if they can, mesh together in that sort of way, they They have a shot. I mean, I don't think they'll make the playoffs next year either, if I had to guess. But
who knows when the Browns are going to be back, man. I mean, personally, I would love to see them get back into the playoffs. I know how dedicated and loyal that fan base is. I know a couple Cleveland fans, so I understand, and I really feel bad for them, but I just don't see it, man. And like the whole Odell situation, that's a whole nother story. I mean, that was a disaster last year.
Yeah.
Maybe with new coaching, that will all get solved. But man, speaking of quarterback, that wasn't it for the Browns' moves. As we end on this note, Case Keenum signed a 3-year deal with the Browns. Should Baker be a little nervous? Keenum going to come for his job? Zing.
Oh, that's kind of similar to the Hooper move. It's like you already have a quarterback. You already had a tight end. You already had a quarterback, and
you do always need a backup. But at the same time, it seems like every time Case Keenum's gone anywhere the last few years, it's to be a starter. So it's kind of interesting.
I mean, if they're playing on Baker Mayfield getting hurt or just playing terrible again, I mean, you got a pretty good wingman there. But I mean,
oh my gosh.
I mean, Case Keenum is kind of like how we're talking about with Teddy Bridgewater. I think Teddy Bridgewater is better than Case Keenum, but
yeah,
I still think that Keenum, I think he's just like a top backup. Maybe he might play for a team like, I don't know, like a stopgap quarterback, maybe like Denver. I don't know.
Well, he was just there a couple years ago.
Exactly. There you go.
He was with the Vikings and the Broncos, the Redskins last year, and now he's on the Browns. I mean, just every year, a new team for Case Keenum.
I mean, he's a good he'll be a good backup for Baker Mayfield, don't get me wrong, but it's still a bit questionable why they would use their money in that kind of way when they could pick up more offensive linemen, defense.
I'll say this. If Baker does not improve at all this coming season, as a matter of fact, if he takes a step or two back, you got to start thinking about moving on from him, don't you? Because that's going to be 3 years. He's going to have, 1 or 2 more years left on his rookie deal. I'm not saying you give up on him immediately, but I would have to think that in 2021, they might go into that draft thinking, hey, we might need to look at a quarterback.
Well,
I think this could be a make or break year for Baker, honestly.
Well, I think a lot also is just because he's on the Browns, and you know how they always make the wrong decisions. They always jump the gun really quickly. I mean, it depends on how bad, I guess, like Mayfield would do if we're going to get to that point. Like, I mean, I think if the Browns can at least get to 8 wins, maybe 9, I think Mayfield should have that job pretty secure. He should be, I think.
He's got to cut off the turnovers, though. Way too many turnovers last year.
I don't know. I think they did take a first overall pick on him, so I think they should at least wait till like year 4 to really, like after year 4 to really, okay.
I'm just saying that if he just does not show any signs of improvement this coming year, I mean, I know he's going to have a new coaching staff, a new playbook, so that probably will play a factor in how he does, but he's just got to play better, man.
Yeah.
Like, it's plain and simple. You got to step it up. I mean, you got Odell, you got Jarvis Landry, you got those running backs, you got Hooper now, you got Conklin at offensive line. I mean, he's got the nucleus around him.
Yeah.
It's time to put it together, man.
Yeah, I think for sure. I mean, they always say year 3 and 4 in particular, that's when you really know. Like, by then you should know what you have.
Yeah.
So I do think that is for sure a big year. But I still think, though, that Cleveland would be smart to, like, even if it doesn't go so well next year, it's like, hey, they got a new coaching staff. Like, hopefully they don't fire him after year 1. But, I still think their best thing should be patience, because that's just something that the Browns have lacked. They've always just jumped the gun with their quarterbacks, their head coaches, other top players. Like they traded Joe Hayden, for instance.
Yeah.
Like, I think they should just stay the course. They got weapons. Try to figure this out.
I mean, I definitely understood them firing Freddie Kitchens.
Yeah, I mean that
it was so apparent that it was just not working. He was getting outcoached every single week. The guy was just out of his element. I mean, he was not going to be the answer. So I actually understood and agreed with them parting ways with Freddie. But yes, up until then, every other year it seems like, okay, on to the next guy. I mean, I'm trying to even think of some of the coaches they've had. and I'm drawing a blank because they just have gone through
Pat
so many.
Shermer, Mike Pettin,
Hugh Jackson,
Romeo Crennel.
oh gosh, going way back. Butch Davis, the early 2000s. But yeah, it just they just hopefully. What's the guy? I keep trying to think who they hired this year. I can't think of his name. I know they hired him from Minnesota.
It's kind
their
of
offensive coordinator.
Yeah, it's kind of a no-namer. I guess. Maybe not. Minnesota. I don't know.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's the Browns. You can never remember who the coach is.
And yet they had Eric Bieniemy, the Chiefs offensive coordinator, just sitting there, and they didn't even interview him. I don't think. They may have interviewed him, but they didn't hire him.
Yeah.
Just another questionable decision by the Brownies. Come on.
They got the pieces there. It's just they just got to all come together,
And the offseason is still young, so maybe they'll be making some more moves.
They
maybe
should.
They have made a move while we've been doing this show. We don't know. We'll have to check. All right, Matt. Well, I think that's going to do it for tonight. I think as far as the other free agents, though, that are available, I know one guy that jumps out immediately, Jadeveon Clowney, is still available. So it's
the
really,
big name.
I think he's probably the biggest name guy out there now that Brady and Rivers are officially going to be signing elsewhere.
Yeah.
So it'll be interesting to see where Clowney goes. I mean, he's great player, always has an injury problem, though. So you kind of have to weigh that.
Well, a team's going to give him at least $100 million or close to it.
Yeah, it wouldn't surprise me.
Those type of players, they always get paid.
Yeah.
Defensive linemen.
Absolutely.
Edge rushers. So.
Real quick, though, while I'm thinking about it, what did you think about Marcus Mariota signing with the Raiders last night? Because, I mean, we all assumed that the Raiders were going to be in the mix for Brady.
Yeah.
And it just almost felt like, I don't know if they just got word from Brady himself or they just heard through the grapevine that Brady wasn't going to come there, so they just decided to go in another direction. But it just seems a little strange that you would just sign Mariota the first night of free agency and just basically say, okay, we give up. We're not going to get Brady. On to plan B, or maybe in this case, C, D, E, F. Yeah. I don't know.
Yeah, it was almost like they just tapped out beforehand. Because, I do think that I feel like Brady, regardless, probably would have went to Tampa Bay.
I think so.
It kind of seemed like his mind was set because it was like the same day that he announced, I'm not staying with New England. Same day he's going to Tampa Bay. But, yeah, it's still a bit questionable because it sounded like the Raiders were, like, preparing as if they were going to move on from Derek Carr. And now it's looking like,
they're going to have a battle.
Yeah.
Carr and Mariota.
Although I would like to think that Carr will win that battle. But
you would think, but I mean, Carr has just been so up and down.
I don't know. I mean, it's kind of.
I'm not a big Derek Carr fan. I'm just not.
Yeah.
He had the one great season, got the big contract. Ever since then, has just not been the same player.
Yeah, he's a tough guy to just dissect, really. I do think kind of similar to Baker in the sense it's like next year is like a make or break year for Derek Carr. Yeah. So I think in that regard, signing a Mariota isn't the worst. Maybe it might like motivate him more if that maybe something psychologically just kind of pushes him a bit more. That's not a bad thing because he's never really had that since he's been there. It's a bit questionable, but.
And on the flip side, maybe Gruden can work some magic with Mariota.
Yeah, he's supposed to.
Because we know Mariota is talented. I mean, he did lead the Titans to the playoffs a couple of years ago, matter of fact.
Yeah.
He's just had a lot of issues with injuries. And then last year, I mean, he just was terrible. The Titans had no choice to bench him for Tannehill. So maybe going to a quarterback guru, as they like to call him, Gruden, will be able to figure him out if he does get an opportunity to start for them. We never know if Carr gets hurt, if Carr just starts playing terribly. Maybe Mariota will get an opportunity. But, yeah, I don't know. I guess I was a little disappointed because I was really hoping that the Raiders were going to at least make an effort. And maybe they did, and they just found out that he wasn't interested, Brady, that is. But I don't know. I think if I'm a Raider fan, I'd come out of this a little disappointed. Like, really? Like, these are going to be our quarterbacks? Derek Carr and Marcus Mariota, two guys that just have not lived up to the hype.
Well, the whole thing with Brady going to the Raiders is like, oh, he's supposed to be like the new poster boy, moving into a new city, new stadium. Yeah. And they got Tom Brady. That's box office. But, it's an interesting move to say the least. And, it might be a situation like what happened in Tennessee. Maybe Derek Carr might get hurt, and Mariota, coincidentally enough, might be the guy who takes over. And if he plays well, that might be his job to lose.
We saw what happened with Tannehill. How much money did the Titans just give him?
$118 million?
Something like that. I mean, good God. I mean, we can talk about that, too. I mean, Tannehill, it just was mediocre in Miami. Had, a couple decent seasons, I guess you could say.
Yeah.
I think he did lead them to the playoffs one year. I think it was the first year that Adam Gase was their coach.
Although he didn't play in that playoff game because he got hurt.
That's right. Matt Moore. That's right.
Against Pittsburgh.
And I think Matt Moore got hurt in that game.
Yeah.
But yeah, so Tannehill goes to the Titans planning on being the backup last year. Gets his chance because, like I mentioned, Mariota was just so bad. And Tannehill was excellent. But again, was that a product of just having a great running game with Derrick Henry? Tannehill didn't have to do a lot. Granted, when he had an opportunity to throw the ball, he did it. He excelled.
Yeah.
But I'm really wondering if that was a flash in the pan and Tannehill just fooled Tennessee, similar to what he did to the Dolphins coming out of Texas A&M.
Tannehill did get paid a lot by Miami, too.
Yeah, he got a $100 million deal from them, too. So, man, I don't know. I mean, I understand why the Titans did it, but at the same time, it's like, man, did you really have to give them that much money? But I guess that's just the market for quarterbacks right now.
Yeah, well, I mean, I guess in a way it's better just to commit quicker than to just beat around the bush about it. I mean, look at the Cowboys and Dak Prescott, for instance. But,
well, if they get my buddy Randy Goodman in Dallas to get his thoughts on that whole mess.
But, yeah, it's, you can flip a coin on that, honestly, on if this is going to work out or not, really, because obviously Tannehill did have a great season last year.
He did. Absolutely.
You can't deny that. I mean, he even beat Patrick Mahomes, I believe, in the regular season. So
yeah, they beat the Chiefs at home, and then of course they beat Brady in his last game with New England, and then they beat the Ravens in the divisional round, who was completely unstoppable all season.
Yeah, well, although obviously in the playoffs it was more on Henry than it was Tannehill, but in the regular season anyway, Tannehill did very well.
He did. I'm not bashing him any way, but I'm just saying his track record has been that he's not usually that quarterback. Maybe he's found the secret. Maybe playing for Mike Vrabel was just all he needed. Change of scenery, right? I mean, look, maybe he will end up playing like this next year and beyond. But for me, I definitely have a lot of doubts there, and I don't know if I would have felt comfortable giving him $118 million. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah, well, they did have money to spend, I believe, so that kind of helped, I'm sure, with that decision.
And they were another team that were in the running for Brady, supposedly, because of the Mike Vrabel connection.
Yeah. I don't know. That's going to be that's another storyline that we're going to be watching along with all the other ones we've already discussed. It's, what Tennessee is going to do. They did re-sign Derrick Henry. So,
franchise, though.
They franchised
Which
him.
I don't understand. I mean, he deserves a new deal.
They should resign.
At the same time, they're running him into the ground, so maybe they're thinking we'll just give him 5,000 carries next year, then we'll send him on his way because he's going to be damaged goods after that.
Yeah, I mean, if they miss the playoffs next year, that's going to be a very bad look on the Titans and Tannehill, though.
Right, because they were one game away from playing in the Super Bowl, for crying out loud. But you also have to remember they were a 9-win team in the regular season.
It seems like they always win 9 games every year. 9-7, 9-7.
So, right, they're a good team, clearly, and they kind of caught lightning in a bottle in the playoffs. But let's not get ahead of ourselves here. They were ultimately a 9-win team, so obviously there's room for improvement there.
I mean, look what happened to Jacksonville. They went to the AFC title game.
And then the whole team got dismantled. I mean, every offseason since then, they've been losing all their guys from that team.
So, yeah, it'll be curious to see, how the Titans do next year. I think it's too early for predictions yet with the draft and the rest of free agents, obviously. But, it's... I don't know, I'm kind of on the fence with that one. I don't have to wait and see, give it more time. But
like I said, I understand it. I'm saying from my standpoint, I wouldn't have given him that much money.
Yeah.
Just because he's been in the league for a while now, and we kind of know who he is. But again, the Titans just had to do what they had to do. They weren't obviously going to bring back Mariota.
They could have threw their hat, into the ring for Brady.
Well, that's what I'm saying. I don't know how serious that ever was. I don't know if Brady ever really even considered going to Tennessee. That doesn't really seem like the type of place that he would want to go to, honestly. But then again, I didn't think Tampa Bay would be the place that would attract Brady either. So who knows? But
Florida weather.
regardless, we could go on and on all night, but we're going to go ahead and end it there. Thank you so much for tuning into our very first episode of the Big Mouth Willie Bass podcast. Please follow us on Twitter. And I'm drawing a blank on what her Twitter handle is right now. It's, let's see, is it that Big
Mouth Willie Bass podcast?
No, I remember they wouldn't allow me to do that. Gosh dang it, I forgot.
Big Mouth Willie podcast, I believe?
Big Mouth Willie or something like that. I'll let you guys know next time. So I should have that memorized already. But either way, follow us on YouTube. Find the show there. Just type in Big Mouth Willie Bass podcast. And I'm planning on getting an Instagram page going. I'm not sure if I'm going to get a Facebook page. I'm not really too keen on Facebook these days. But yeah, just keep checking us out. Subscribe on Podbean. I'm going to check in and make sure that we're on Apple iTunes and all that good stuff. So if you do find us on any of those platforms, make sure you subscribe. And we will talk to you next time. I'm Ryan Willis.
And I'm Matt Willis.
See ya.
All right.